Hi, welcome to Author Straight Talk with Sarah Gerdes. My name is Chuck. That is Sarah. And Sarah, last time you were hanging out at your house, and this doesn't look like your house unless it's a special room in your house. That is gorgeous. Where are
You
you?
know, I wish it was a room in my house. I always wanted to be the real Martha Stewart, but I missed that. I was never on the East Coast. We are at Ron and Robin Lowe's house. They are very famous locally here in Coeur d'Alene for junk in the country, and also a Christmas kind of junk in the country Christmas. They have it twice a year, and they open up. They have a series of barns, barns that have actually been used. And we are kind of in the man cave, which is my favorite barn of the four that they have. If you can look around, it is full of all kinds of things that he has created and used. You can't really see it, I don't think, in the video, but right here is the wood fire stove that's keeping me warm because it's a whole 29 degrees outside right now. So
Yikes.
I am warm. I am in my cozy sheepskinned boots. And if I chatter, just try and forgive me.
Yeah, no, it's all good. That looks like a great environment for just being creative. Like I could see, even sort of writing in an environment like that. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I would love to. And again, going back to the vision, I think in one of our earlier videos talking about inspiration and writer's block, sometimes I literally do just put down my computer, I shut it, and I come down here and I just hang out with Ron and Robin. And they're always really good for a story and for just getting my mind back into the world beyond my four little walls.
Well, on this episode, we're not necessarily going to talk about inspiration, but I'm inspired just seeing it. Today, on episode 7 of Author Straight Talk, we want to talk about an agent. Is it even necessary? And the process that you went through, because I know anybody who's aspiring to become an author and actually make a living doing that, that's one of the biggies. So we'll start with the biggest question. Should I get an agent? Yes or no?
It depends. And people who read my book and know me personally hate that answer because, and I don't blame them, it's one that I hated as well. It depends, but it really does. It comes down to mainstream publishing, your desires, and we covered that in the first couple of videos, or are you going to go independent? Are you going to go self-publishing? So let's just make the assumption that you are exactly like I was when I started out 20 years ago, that you wanted your name in lights, you wanted a mainstream publisher, and to do that, you need an agent because they do not accept unsolicited manuscripts. Now, there are the bluebirds out there. Everybody loves to talk about Stephenie Meyer and how she sent out dozens and dozens of manuscripts directly to publishers. One finally read it, their assistant did on a plane, and then lo, she got a deal and an agent kind of in reverse order. That is the 0.0008%. Something about agents you need to know is they're probably harder to get than a book deal. And the reason why is because there's 4 million people in the United States that consider themselves an author. That doesn't mean that they're making money doing it or that they've been published, but they consider themselves an author. For those 4 million people to get, several thousand agents that are available is very tough. And then many agents do not accept unsolicited inquiries or manuscripts. Now, there are a few out there who do, and they list, we want nonfiction biographical, or we want fiction in the paranormal, and you're able to go on their website and submit something to them, but even that is actually pretty hard to find. So, backtracking, if you're self-published, you don't need an agent. If you're going independent publishing, you don't need an agent. If you're going mainstream, the answer is yes, you need an agent.
Okay, so where do I start? Let's assume I want an agent. Yeah, right. Let's assume I want an agent. Do I Google find a book agent? Where do I start?
Well, don't do what I did. I went out and bought a book and it listed something like 5,000 agents in the United States. I swear I spent 12 months going through and creating Excel spreadsheets of the name and the contact and the genre and what they're looking for and would they accept one chapter or do they want the whole book? That was such a complete waste of time. At the end of that year, Chuck, I go to my husband. We've only been married about a year, okay? And I'm almost in tears. I'm like, what am I going to do? He just says to me, well, why didn't you just ask? I'll just see what our publisher wants. Well, here's the story. He was working for Microsoft at the time. Microsoft had Microsoft Publishing. He just calls up one of his contacts over there and says, hey, who's the agent that you like to work with the very most? And the guy thought about it and he said, oh, Matt Wagner at Waterside Communications. No, he's relatively well known for the Dummy series, okay, out of California. So in 24 hours, I get an introduction to Matt. He has me pitch him over the phone, and 60 days later, I had a book deal with McGraw-Hill. Okay, that is the total exception.
All right. Well, if that's the exception, then what's the norm look like?
The norm is what I went through subsequent to that, where I actually had to go through a number of people to try and get an introduction to a fiction agent. And how that happened is more likely, and this is where you're going to get some hope for people who are viewing this video. There are many ways to get referrals. You don't have to be in New York. You don't actually have to go to a workshop or a conference, which is what most people will tell you. Come to the workshop, spend $295, and you might meet an agent. You might meet a publisher. I never found that to work. So what I did was I started tapping into editorial folks like a strategic editor or a proofreader. They all know one another. So I was speaking with an editor who, by the way, I had paid to edit one of my books. And I said, hey, here's a book. You're helping me edit it. Can you put me in touch with an agent that you might think would represent me? And Chuck, she was really blunt. Okay. And so I'm sharing her blunt with you, is she said there's three types of agents. And they're A, B, and C. And she said, that's how us acquisition editors rank agents. Okay. I'd never heard of this before. She said, the A agents are the ones that are proven to represent best-selling authors. They get their manuscript in, they read them right away. Okay. Then you've got, and those are about 10% of the agents out there, 5 to 10%, she said. Then you've got the B agents where they're kind of hit and miss. You know, some of their authors are really good. Some of them, they don't, they're not so great. But every so often, a B agent will find a diamond in the rough. Those manuscripts get read between 1 and 3 months. So if I'm sending my book to you, Chuck, and you're my agent and you're a B-level agent, you're going to read my manuscript yourself in maybe 1 to 3 months. Then you will send my manuscript off to a publisher. They're going to read it in 1 to 3 months. So we're 6 months in. Are you following me so far?
Yep.
Okay. Then the last level is the C agents. And those are the ones that their taste really isn't, and their track record really isn't that great. So those get shunted to kind of a third pile, is what my editor was telling me. And this was subsequently validated by other publishers. So you've got A, B, and C, and then there's the unwashed masses who've never had a bestseller, but maybe it's like Joe Bob created his agency, and I'm desperate, so I'm going to give my manuscript because what have I got to lose? Well, there's a blessing and a curse. You signed up with an agent. That agent is in possession of your manuscript, and that person is going to send it off to the publisher. They're going to see it. There's no track record with this agent. They've never had a bestseller. And so it's going to go into pile number, like, what am I on, D?
Yeah.
And that pile is going to get read by some assistant or some assistant's assistant. And yes, we've heard the great stories in Hollywood of, oh, my assistant found the script, or, oh, Stephenie Meyer's, or Meyer said the assistant to the publisher found the script. Well, that could happen. And if you want to keep hope alive, that may happen to you. But that's the pile that gets looked at dead last by the person in the front office. Okay, so you've got 4 different types of agents, and you have that choice to say, who am I getting?
So how did this end up working with your agent, Sarah?
So on the first book, I got a bit of additional honest feedback. I should stop saying that because they're all really blunt. They don't have time to waste. And so my editor said, look, your writing's not good enough for the agent, and I'm not even going to introduce you to them because my credibility's on the line. I was like, okay, well, I know where I stand. I mean, I clearly am no Hemingway, so that's fine with me. And she said, but you're better than a C agent, which I actually kind of felt good. I'm like, okay, that's B plus Sarah. I'm not failing the grade, but I'm kind of making it. And so she said, I'm going to look for an agent for you that has had a couple of modest bestsellers, but who's hungry. And she said something that I found to be very true, and I can tell you some horror stories later from personal experience, that if you don't have an agent that is hungry enough for you, they're not going to read your manuscript, so they're not going to know what the heck they're talking about when they're trying to pitch your book. They're not going to have any enthusiasm about it. And frankly, they're not going to want it as bad. If you're sitting back on your laurels because your checks are coming in from some best-selling author, What motivation do you have to find the next great thing, or to really rep somebody who's not in the middle of nowhere but has got a great idea? So her words have really proven to be true, that you need to find an agent who's as enthusiastic about you as you are.
Yeah. Great information. I'm guessing your new book actually goes into a little bit more detail, maybe gives a little bit of a roadmap for aspiring authors on finding the right agent?
It does. I tend to learn more from the horror stories than the successful ones, because it shows you not, what not to do, like I did. And yes, it does. There's a whole chapter on getting agents.
Well, that's just one of the many great chapters in the new book coming out, Author Straight Talk with Sarah Gerdes. That's what this video series is all about. If you haven't done so already, I hope you'll take time to subscribe. We update these regularly every time a new video comes out. You'll get the notification, so make sure you do that. On our next video, we're going to discuss insecurity and overcoming fear. I'm sure every writer faces it. Maybe you face that. So make sure you join us next time right here on Author Straight Talk with Sarah Gerdes.